There is an abandoned railway tunnel in Niagara Falls which has a special significance. It is the birthplace of an infamous urban legend. For decades, people have hiked through the woods to catch a glimpse of the ghosts in what locals have christened the Screaming Tunnel. One young woman brought her visiting friend. She shared the sad tale of the little girl who had been killed inside and whose tragic story became the basis for this ghostly legend. Like many local young people, she had already challenged the ghost of the tunnel, proving her courage to her friends. She then prompted her friend to do the same and share in this Niagara Falls rite of passage. The two women waited for nightfall. At midnight, they returned. The local explained to her friend that for everything to work, she would have to stand in the tunnel and light a wooden match, but she had to do it alone. Not knowing what to expect, her fear began to mount. She fumbled with the matches. Her heart was pounding. Her friend raced in, only to find her shaking in terror. The visitor had learned firsthand why this place had earned the name, the Screaming Tunnel.
In Niagara Falls, Ontario, a local legend has become a rite of passage for the city's youth. For generations, they have tested their courage against the spirit of a murdered young girl. Now, no passage into adulthood is complete without a trip through the Screaming Tunnel.
A tunnel that has lots of mystery and legend. The tunnel itself was built just before the outbreak of World War I. When funds fell through and they were having financial difficulties, all plans had to be scrapped, including the tunnel here. It was just left unused. There is the infamous legend here of the girl who brutally died in the tunnel.
According to legend, the little girl had been forced to flee from her psychopathic father. He had just lost a bitter custody battle and, in a fit of rage, had burnt down their house.
Get back here!
Narrowly escaping the fire, the little girl tried desperately to get away.
Where do you go?
She ran as fast as she could through the woods near her home, but every time she stopped for breath, she could hear her father coming up behind her. He was closing in quickly.
Where are you?
Searching for a place to hide, she came upon the abandoned tunnel. In terror, she ran into the darkness, hoping the shadows would conceal her. But there was no hiding from her deranged father. He followed her into the tunnel. He then doused her with gasoline. And in one horrible final moment, burned her alive. Since then, paranormal investigators have recorded strange sounds echoing through the tunnel. Mostly, eerie screams. Some of the investigators also claim to have made physical contact with more than one spirit, leading them to believe that the terrified little girl may not be the only ghost who haunts the screaming tunnel.
They say that at midnight you can come here to the tunnel, stand right in the center of it, bring matches. They say that they have to be wooden matches. You can't use a lighter. And when you strike the match, you hold it up, and you're supposed to hear a scream, immediately followed by the match burning out.
The same local resident and her friend bravely returned to see if they could repeat their earlier experience. Again, they heard the frightening scream. But this time, when they turned towards the entrance, they saw a transparent figure approaching them. It is believed that the little girl's father is one of the other ghosts in the tunnel. Though he disappeared after the murder, perhaps he remains there to relive that fateful day. Or maybe he is looking for more victims. Local legend says that if he actually reaches someone inside, they will die instantly. Not wishing to test the myth, the two girls fled. But many others come every day, brave souls willing to challenge the spirits of the screaming tunnel. In 1920, this Winnipeg house became the setting for some of the most unique and interesting paranormal research in Canada. After the death of their son Lamont, Dr. Thomas Hamilton and his wife Lillian May Forrester began conducting what have come to be known as the Hamilton experiments.
The Hamilton Archives at the University of Manitoba contains a collection of photographs and research notes documenting one of the most fascinating experiments ever conducted in Canada. Over the years, many of these experiments have perplexed the minds of countless scientists. While these studies were unorthodox, the results baffle scientists to this day.
Dr. Hamilton was a prominent figure in Manitoba for a number of years. He was a member of the Manitoba legislature. He was a dedicated physician. He fought for his civil rights and was also involved in some unusual activities involving spiritualism and mediumship. In around 1920, he became very, very interested in these types of phenomena following the death of a relative. He was curious about the afterlife and began reading up on it. He became convinced enough that there was something to it that he began a series of experiments. And in about 1921, he was working with a medium who conducted a series of seances in the Hamilton home in Winnipeg.
Dr. Hamilton's studies were quite varied, but perhaps the most perplexing were his experiments with ectoplasm, a visible substance believed to emanate from the body of a spiritualistic medium during communication with the dead. The great mystery of this experiment is that no one could explain where the ectoplasm actually came from. However, it is believed that ectoplasm is the manifestation of spiritual energy being transformed to physical matter, channeled by a medium. Dr. Hamilton, his wife, and a medium would sit around a table holding hands. When the medium would finally fall into a trance, ectoplasm would begin appearing in and around her. The ectoplasmic material observed was different each time it appeared. Sometimes it was described as resembling cheesecloth, while other times it was seen in the form of thick, heavy smoke. Once exposed and expelled from the medium, the ectoplasm would dissipate into thin air. Dr. Hamilton's collection of photographs may be the most provocative evidence of the existence of spirits. The presence of ectoplasm is believed to indicate successful communication with the dead. The photos contained in the Hamilton archives are believed to be the largest collection of photographic evidence of the existence of ectoplasm.
There hasn't been a very rigorous analysis of the photographs, although even a cursory glance at the photographs will make most people say, oh, those were faked. But we have to remember, back in the 1920s, photography was a little less refined than it is now. We didn't have Photoshop. These things probably did occur in real time. So while the photos themselves were likely not doctored, the question is, what were they photographs of? Well, there may have been some effect of a cultural interest. People didn't have television to rely on for entertainment, so this was sometimes looked upon as parlor tricks. That's how we get the term parlor tricks, after all. But at the same time, these people had reputations. They were publishing in medical journals. They were solid citizens, very active in legal and political movements, and they had a lot to lose should they be taken in by some foolhardy endeavors.
Another series of experiments hosted by the doctor were referred to as non-contact raps. The alphabet would be recited by the medium, and on a particular letter, a noise would be heard. Eventually, the series of noises or raps would form a word or a name.
QRSTUV GHI CD EFG.
The doctor also conducted studies on telekinesis. The medium would channel spiritual energy, and an item such as a table would levitate, seeming to suspend itself in midair. It was always Dr. Hamilton's wish that his work carry on after his death. So even today, there are many incredible photographs, notes, and affidavits available for review at the Hamilton Archives in the University of Manitoba.
So the question is, were these table rappings and bell ringings and voices being heard, were these manifestations really occurring, or were people being led astray? At this point, it's hard to say because we're looking at something that occurred 80 years ago. But at the same time, the people who were present said that this is what really occurred. We don't know what happened.
Perhaps the Hamiltons' longing and grief over the loss of their son made them more susceptible to so-called parlor tricks. Or maybe while conducting these experiments, they really did find evidence of a connection to the other side. Ontario's Discovery Harbour offers visitors a trip back in time with a glimpse into military life in the early 19th century. But in some parts of the space, there are moments when the present and the past collide. The officers' quarters is one such place. A curator was packing an antique sherry decanter and glasses when she caught a glimpse of something moving just out of the corner of her eye. Concerned that someone might have wandered into the closed building, she followed. But whenever she came close to this mysterious person, he seemed to evade her. After a fruitless search, she returned to her work, only to find the glassware missing. Again she heard the sound of footsteps. Seated on the cot was the man she had pursued. Then he simply vanished. The mattress was indented, as though someone had been sitting there moments before. On the dresser sat the antique sherry bottle and glasses. This was not the last time these items moved about the officers' quarters on their own.
Penetanguishene, Ontario's Discovery Harbour, has recreated military life in the early 19th century. Few realize the hardship encountered by those stationed there. It was a life of disease, deprivation, and frequently suicide. It is little wonder that so many ghosts seem to have attached themselves to Discovery Harbour.
The history of Discovery Harbour runs back to the early 19th century, the War of 1812, in fact, when the British decided that it would be a good idea to build a naval base at this location. One of the more popular stories here concerns Private James Drury, who was stationed on guard duty at the officers' quarters.
The building was empty, so Drury used the opportunity to see how the young officers lived. During his exploration, he came across a bottle of sherry and decided to have a quick drink. Liquor was new to this young man, and he had no idea of its effects, so he continued drinking. After consuming an entire bottle of sherry, he staggered back to his post. Drury was found the next morning, dead at his post, believed to have died of alcohol poisoning. Many soldiers like Private Drury often came from impoverished backgrounds, and perhaps despite its hardships, Discovery Harbour was the first and only real home this young soldier ever knew, one that he still refuses to give up. It is possible that he continually hides the antique sherry bottle, not to partake in it, but to prevent those who handle it from making the same fatal mistake he did. Another tale revolves around John and Samuel McGarrity, brothers who were serving in the same infantry company. During a march from Toronto, Samuel fell ill. John volunteered to stay back for the night and watch over his sick brother until a relief squad could be dispatched. Samuel's illness worsened, and he died in John's arms. Terrified and distraught, the surviving brother ran off to find help and was found dead the next morning. Some claim his death was due to exposure, while others feel he simply died of a broken heart. Either way, these two brothers, who were inseparable in life, have been brought together again to spend eternity on the grounds of Discovery Harbour.
The two brothers, having died, are said to perhaps have continued their march and, as their duty warranted, coming to Penetanguishene We have had sightings of the two brothers, and two soldiers have been seen walking around the side of a building and then disappearing after that, nowhere to be found. Over drinks one evening, a certain military surgeon was wont to comment upon an individual who had just passed on and said, "Oh, he was a fine specimen. I would certainly love to have his head in my collection." Well, I guess this made its way down to the canteen, where some of the men, likely in their cups, got to thinking they might oblige the good doctor and set about disinterring the body from its grave and procuring the head. And they presented this to the surgeon, who was quite horrified to discover that his words had been taken perhaps more literally than he intended. Well, not wanting to be caught, these two men took the head, wrapped it up, and tossed it away.
A few nights later, a young woman was trying to find her dog that had run off. She found the stray dog gnawing at something on the ground. She was horrified to discover that the dog was chewing on the discarded human head. She ran off, sickened by the sight. The young lady stopped for a moment to catch her breath and saw the horrifying vision of a staggering, headless man. The headless man vanished, and she raced home. But to this day, many people have reported seeing this disturbing spirit wandering the grounds of the base. Whether it is terrifying encounters with the headless figure or the past soldiers trapped at their eternal posts, at Discovery Harbor there is much more to experience than just history. This conservatory in Regina, Saskatchewan is known for more than just music. Even the name Dark Hall suggests there may be more to this university facility than meets the eye. One night, a young student was working late when she caught a momentary glimpse of a shadowy figure in the stairwell, and then, as quickly as it came, it vanished. As she made her way down the stairs, she saw the figure again. Frightened yet compelled, she followed it. When she entered the conservatory auditorium, her terror grew as the figure once again disappeared.
The University of Regina in Saskatchewan is home to a multitude of scholars, professors, academics, and 3 resident spirits who inhabit the university's Francis Dark Conservatory.
Dark Hall is a performance venue for the Conservatory of Performing Arts and the University of Regina. It was constructed in 1929 through funds donated by Francis Dark, an MP. When Francis Dark passed away, his body was laid in state here in Dark Hall. Perhaps some of the hauntings actually occur because of his love of music, so he may come in and just listen to some of the performances and enjoy them.
A supply of tainted milk inflicted a devastating typhoid epidemic on Dark Hall. A portion of the school was quarantined and subsequently converted to an infirmary. By the time the epidemic subsided, it had claimed the lives of 8 students and 1 teacher. Legend has it that one of those students has returned to haunt Dark Hall. Her spirit has been seen wandering the building late at night. Another late-working student saw a figure of a woman walk into the building, which in itself was nothing unusual. It was when the woman walked through the doors, rather than opening them, that the student became more than a little frightened. His curiosity was sparked. This misplaced curiosity vanished as he noticed the woman staring directly into his eyes. All wonder was instantly converted into fear.
Dark Hall is the performing hall for the conservatory and originally for the community. During the war, of course, Dark Hall was part of the facilities that were taken over by the Air Force, used by the RCAF as number one initial training school.
Another tragic event in Dark Hall's history may account for some of the campus's paranormal occurrences. In the 1930s, the building was used as a military barracks where many soldiers were stationed. During this occupation, an officer jumped to his death from the tower. No one ever knew why this officer committed suicide, but he is believed to be one of the many spirits who continue to haunt Dark Hall to this day. A young woman decided to use the auditorium to read. It seemed like a perfect place since it was quiet and empty. But her peaceful study session was interrupted by the distinct feeling of another presence in the room. She looked around and saw no one. Then the woman felt a nudge on her shoulder, but when she turned to look behind her, again, she saw nothing. She became increasingly more disturbed and decided to leave the auditorium immediately. While in the stairway, she caught a glimpse of a man in uniform ducking into the conservatory. Reluctantly, yet inexplicably drawn, she followed him. As she returned to the auditorium, the man simply vanished right before her eyes.
Over the years, we've heard various stories of people encountering somebody in the building when nobody is around. We're not sure who it is or what their purpose in the building is, but we've never had any problems with it. It's never caused any problems to patrons, and it's a nice story to have.
There have been many varied accounts of the strange occurrences and visions at Dark Hall over the years. Some people report encounters with a military officer from a bygone era, while others claim to have seen a woman dressed in a nightgown. There are even those who swear that they have spotted the ghost of Francis Dark himself. Though many of these stories differ, one thing remains constant. These unsettled souls still dwell within the walls of Dark Hall. A man on his lunch break walked towards Pioneer Square Park. In the distance, he noticed something unusual. Curious, the man came closer, trying to catch another glimpse of what he had just seen. As he entered the park, he soon found himself staring at a woman dressed in white. Then, as quickly as she had come, she was gone, vanished. He continued walking, attempting to make sense of what had just happened. Unfortunately, he only became more confused. A second spirit appeared. This one motioned with his hand as he looked sternly at the man. Fear overcame curiosity, and the man decided to leave, no longer seeking answers to the mysterious apparitions he saw in the park.
Pioneer Square in Victoria, British Columbia, was once a public cemetery for the city of Victoria. Thousands of bodies have been laid to rest there. Today, this area is a public park. Tombstones still dot the landscape of this busy park, and some say, at times, in the distance, you can see more than just tombstones.
There are many ghosts all through Victoria, but Pioneer Square is definitely one of the most haunted places of all. It has become one of the favorite picnicking areas in downtown Victoria. Many people don't realize when they come here on a nice sunny day to have a picnic lunch or to stroll through that there are 1,000 corpses lying underneath the sods of Pioneer Square.
A woman who routinely cut through the park on her way home decided to abandon her regular route after a petrifying experience in this former burying ground. When the eerie figures began to approach her, the woman ran away as fast as she could, vowing never to return. Ever since her encounter with the spirits of Pioneer Square, the woman has lived in terror and has never again set foot in the park.
It's not surprising in an old burying ground like this that people will see ghosts, and there are many of them. One of them is Adelaide Griffin. Adelaide was English. She and her husband, Ben, had headed to the goldfields of Australia in the early 1850s. And then in 1858, when gold was found in British Columbia, they headed up here. Unfortunately, during a typhoid epidemic in 1861, Adelaide died. She was buried here at the old burying ground. And at that time, there were many tombstones. Her ghost was soon seen gliding among the tombstones, flitting around, usually in the evening, scaring people to death.
When the sun sets and darkness falls, the park in Pioneer Square seems to assume a different, more ominous aura. The tombstones, which are generally ignored during the day, become much more prominent at night. Such was the case when an older gentleman stopped to admire the vintage headstones, but he was not alone. The same two spirits appeared and began to approach him. He braced himself for their wrath. With eyes shut tightly, he waited, but nothing happened. And when he looked up again, the ghosts were gone.
During the time of the Fraser River Gold Rush in 1858, hundreds of blacks came from San Francisco to Victoria to avoid persecution. They settled here and on farms in the surrounding area. One of them was Robert Johnson. He had a rather strange nickname. His friends called him Soap and Water Johnson. We don't know why. But he rose in the community. He became a captain in the volunteer militia. Sometimes they were called the Pioneer Rifles.
These new immigrants found it difficult to assimilate, and because of their race, were often discriminated against. As a solution, they appealed to Governor James Douglas with a request to form their own volunteer militia unit. In 1840, the Pioneer Rifles was formed. In 1865, with the increasing difficulty of obtaining suitable weapons and adequate funding, the group eventually disbanded. Robert Johnson, for whatever reason, in 1871 fell into a great deep despair.
His ghost appears here in the old burying ground where he's buried, probably in a grave that was never marked. We don't know exactly where he lies, but he's here. His ghost is here as well, and he scares the daylights out of people when he appears and when he stands there and slits his throat.
The thousands of bodies buried beneath the sandstone grave markers which dot this Victoria landscape make Pioneer Square an obvious hotbed of paranormal activity. But with a myriad of souls laid to rest there, it seems odd that only 2 spirits have remained bound to the park. Perhaps all the others have been able to sever their connection with the material world, or maybe they are just biding their time. Time and again, history has shown us that family bonds can be some of the most powerful human relationships, and Calgary's Rouge restaurant is living proof that sometimes this connection is even strong enough to reach beyond the grave. A waiter was preparing for a banquet when he heard the sound of a child's laughter coming from the private rooms. Each time he thought he had gotten closer to the source of the laughter, it seemed to move farther away. He started to feel like an unwilling participant in a game of tag. The source of the laughter now seemed to move downstairs. He followed the sound down 2 floors and ultimately into the basement. Standing in the doorway of a walk-in freezer was a child. Thinking that she might be in danger, the young man entered the freezer too. When he got inside, the little girl was gone. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, locking him inside. He realized that he hadn't simply followed the sounds of the laughter into the basement. He had been led downstairs, a calculated move to win the game.
The original settlers of Calgary, Alberta, were a hardy breed who spent their lives carving a home out of the wilderness and taking great pride in what they built. It shouldn't surprise us that some of them chose never to leave their homes, even after death.
Rouge Restaurant was originally the home of A.E. Cross and his family. The Crosses were prosperous and content until the tragic death of their youngest daughter, Lizzie, as a result of an influenza epidemic. After Lizzie's death, it is believed that she stayed on in spirit, and A.E. Cross himself stayed on after his death, watching over his beloved daughter.
We've had clairvoyants come through, most of them on their own. Their curiosity has brought them here. They've all concurred and said there's two spirits in the house. One is of a small child, and the other is a larger energy source, but they all felt it was very parental in nature. So that leads us to sort of anticipate that that would be A.E. Cross. From all the research that we've done into the family history, A.E. was a very devoted father and did care a lot for all of his children. When I first arrived at the Cross House, I know this is the wrong word, but it's the only word I can really use. I was agnostic with my belief towards ghosts. After being here for 2 years, I am a believer. There's two separate incidents in the kitchen involving frying pans that traveled sideways across the burners, witnessed both times.
Encounters with the ghosts of Rouge Restaurant don't only take place after hours. During a banquet, a hostess saw a man sitting alone in an empty dining room. He rose, revealing a body that was almost transparent, and as he moved towards her, he flickered in and out of view. Startled, she ran to inform the owner. It was not the first time Paul had heard such stories. There was no sign of the mysterious gentleman, but Paul assured her that she was not the first to encounter him. As she was leaving, a door swung open on its own, and she chose to leave the spirits in peace. This loving father continues to act as the eternal guardian for his daughter, still haunting the building that was once their home and is today Calgary's Rouge Restaurant.